So I often talk about how important it is to collaborate with other musicians in the music industry. It's a great way to improve your skills and knowledge as a musician, as well as creating some amazing music. And it's just great for networking and meeting new people. And it can lead to some really amazing opportunities. So it's great to expand your circle and get involved in the music communities that you're part of. So with that in mind, I've decided to start a new series called Beats with Friends, and this is going to be episode 1. So it's a pretty simple concept. Each episode I'll invite a new musician on. That could be a vocalist, a producer, a guitar player, and together we'll make a beat. We'll talk about the beat and the process behind making it, and a few other questions around the music industry and workflows and stuff like that. So it's going to be a really interesting series, and I've got some incredible musicians lined up, starting with this episode's musician, who is one of my favourite guitarists in lo-fi and just generally one of my favourite guitarists to listen to. He's got a fantastic tone and playing style. He's worked with many major labels in the lo-fi scene like Lo-Fi Girl, Chill Beats and College Music. So as the title is probably already given away, this week's guest is going to be the legendary Pointy Features. So before I speak to Pointy Features, this is the demo that I initially sent to him. Really excited to hear what he does with this one. So Pointy Features, thank you very much for joining us today. Do you prefer to be called Pointy Features or Dan?
Hello everyone, thanks for having me on, Mondo. Really appreciate the kind words. You can call me Dan or you can call me Pointy Features. Either is fine really. Hopefully we can share a few things today and help inspire the people that are watching here on the channel.
So I've got to say I'm a huge fan of your work. You always elevate the tracks that you feature on, and you've made some amazing projects in lo-fi. Particularly Shine On is my favourite, the one that you did with Kanasan and Softy. I love that album. It's got a huge re-listen value and it's such a perfect lo-fi hip-hop album. So I'm just curious, how did you first venture into lo-fi and what was your sort of background before? Like, were you writing music prior to lo-fi?
So I started my journey into lo-fi really as a musician. When I was younger, I picked up guitar about age 14, my first Stratocaster, and went from there. I had a good teacher which allowed me to learn about seeing behind the curtain how chord progressions, scales, and all of that goes together to make a sound be cohesive really. And from there started publishing my own music on MySpace. I was only really putting together 2 or 3 guitar parts. I didn't know how to do drums, but the tracks themselves still sound alright today, and they got me into a couple of bands around the country and went from there really. And it was around 2017 or 2018, I was on holiday in Amsterdam and this music kept creeping up in the bars and the cafes over there, and that was the first time I heard the genre. I thought this was interesting because it's so suitable for passive listening and also active listening as well at the same time. So it's really ideal for all circumstances. So I thought, I'll have a go at doing that. So I got home with a phone full of Shazams and did some digging, looked into these artists, looked what they were using, downloaded some samples, which is a totally new thing for me as like a traditional guitarist musician. And yeah, had a go really. Bought an Akai Mini keypad, as most people start with finger drums. That was the start of Pointy Features as it's known. It progressed from there really, and I put my first album out in 2018, and doing that opened up labels and collaborations and the path to where we both are today really. I had to think at that time about concentrating more about being a producer. Of course, if you want to make professional music, it has to sound good. And it's a different skill being a musician as it is to being a producer. And I did hit a stumbling block when I tried to get guitar as it sounds live into the computer, which is a real nightmare. And hopefully you can share a couple of tips throughout the video which will help any musicians, guitarists like us, getting a step ahead of where they are.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people will agree that jump from being a musician to being a producer, which a lot of people do, initially start off playing an instrument, guitar, piano, whatever it may be, and then decide to start writing music, and it is a completely different skill set, an equally as important skill set to getting the perfect tracks. But But yeah, it's a big jump, so any tips would be much appreciated in this video. And that said, we also do have a lot of guitar players on this channel who would also greatly appreciate the struggles of writing interesting lo-fi guitar chord progressions and writing lo-fi melodies. So as an expert on this yourself, have you got any top tips for lo-fi guitar players to elevate their chord progressions, melody? And also, what's your guitar setup look like at the moment? Have you got any gear or VST recommendations that you couldn't live without?
So I've got some nice gear here I'm thankful for, but when you first start out, you're probably just going to have a cheap guitar from like a local shop or car boot sale or something, and a half knackered cable, an amp that's really noisy. Good thing about lo-fi is that in the end, it's probably going to end up getting compressed and broken to an extent, at the sound that is. So you don't need perfect gear, but it's nice to have. When I'm playing guitar, I usually like to play Stratocaster if it's electric, and I like to play it on the neck pickup. It gives you a nice warm sound. That's the bridge, but I like to have it on the neck. For lo-fi tunes, I would say try to practice using your fingers rather than a pick. It'll just give you a slightly softer sound and take the edge off the sound cutting through. And sometimes in lo-fi, you want to adjust the treble rather than doing a big EQ scoop on getting rid of all the highs. Again, think about using the tone knobs on your guitar, which effectively do the same thing, but just less severely. So I'll give you an example of me playing a progression of one of my songs called Still Dreaming. This is with Brilliant. Got a nice progression. I'll use my fingers on the neck pick. Here we go. Add some delay. For VSTs, I like to keep it simple. Just go straight into amplitude or guitar rig. Clean Fender amp is normally good, and then I'll apply pedals or some onboard effects. But really just try to keep it simple. In general, the least options sometimes can be easier, can be less stressful. Try to get as much of the sound that you want from the guitar end, post-production side. That's what my tip would be. Honorable mention for Valhalla reverb on the orange classic setting. On anything, it's going to make it sound better, but make sure to be careful to EQ the bass frequencies. So on the reverb, if it's on the bus or on the guitar plugin on Valhalla, you want to stop it from reverberating the bass frequencies, because that can make it get really muddy.
So some amazing tips there. I think everyone should be taking note of some of these, and we'd definitely be excited to see some tutorials off you in the future. But quickly, before we break down your additions onto this track, is there any new music that you're in the process of writing? Is there anything that we should be looking out for? What's in the pipeline for Pointy Features?
Yeah, currently I'm working on a live project for the Pointy Features tracks that I've already finished. Taking a little bit of a backseat on recording front, so I can practice on my chops and get back up to speed on playing front, playing side of things. So I've still got a few tracks coming out on people's albums over the next year or so. And if you want to keep up with my music, get in touch with me on Instagram at Pointy Features. Happy to listen to any tracks that you've got or help you out if I can. Might be a bit slow, but I will reply in the end. And that's the best place to keep informed about what I've got going on.
So yeah, I'll link Dan to Instagram and Spotify in the description down below. Would definitely recommend checking out his music, and of course following him on Instagram for any updates. But for now, onto the track. So Dan, you made some incredible additions to this. Would love to know some of the interesting instruments and approaches that you used to write those additions.
So the star of the track is the resonator, meaning it's made of steel and often played with a slide. This is my resonator guitar, and it's very loud. It has a very unique tone. And I thought that I'd try this over the top of your piano playing Mondo, because it's kind of cuts through the mix nicely, and it's got a really unique sound. So it sounds a bit like this. And on the track, it's got basically a compressor, a little bit of reverb, and keeping it simple. Again, really thinking about the muting with my right hand, trying to keep it nice and tidy so there's no noise going onto the track. What we've also got is some chord embellishments, which I'll play for you now on the electric. This is following Mondo's bass line, outlining a progression which I think is E major or E major 7, A flat minor to D flat minor 9.
So yeah, there you go. That was Pointy Features jamming over this insane track. I'm really happy with how this one turned out. Just as a quick background to the song, so I wrote the initial idea at 58 BPM in 4/4 time in Ableton, and I changed it to the triplet grid so I could have the sort of triplet effect on the piano. The piano I recorded on was the Alpha Arnold's piano, as I often am using at the moment. I just haven't found a better one yet. I laid some textures in with the Oliver Patrice Pool project, and yeah, I tried to give it the usual sort of cinematic, evolving feel, which worked so perfectly with Pointy Features additions on the guitar, the lap steel, and the resonator. So yeah, this turned out absolutely perfectly. Great start to the Beats with Friends series. If you want a full tutorial of these tracks, do let me know. I can break down the Ableton project files and stuff as well. Some of these will have a more in-depth analysis technically, and some of them will be more of an overview of the instruments and stuff, like I guess it was today. It really depends on the artist I'm working with in each video. So yeah, it'll be a nice varied series. So huge thanks to Pointy Features for being part of this first episode. I'm hoping we can get Pointy back for some more tutorials. So if there's anything that you've heard of his or anything you'd like to see from Pointy in the future, do let me know. I can certainly ask him. But yeah, thank you very much for watching episode 1 of Beats with Friends. I've got some exciting stuff in the pipeline, so do be sure to hit the subscribe, hit the notification bell, and stay tuned with everything. And make sure to check out Pointy Features' work. I'll drop his links again in the description down below so you can check him out. But yeah, thanks for watching, and catch you next week.